Well, welcome back, everybody, to the podcast. I'm happy to be back this week. I missed you guys.
Yeah,
I was
definitely.
out for the week. You said your handler was gone.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, we were off the chain a little bit.
Yes, off the rails. Yeah, we were going down every rabbit hole, I think.
Yeah. And that's kind of the most fun place to be is like the
bet.
rabbit holes, but you get really dirty when you're doing that.
Well, the other thing was I think we probably captured over 2 hours worth of content, even though we may have only put out an hour.
Yeah, there was a whole like 30-minute discussion before we started the podcast, and it was probably actually more interesting than the podcast was.
It was. It was.
Well,
But we're glad you're back.
I'm glad to be back. I'm glad to be
What
back.
were you doing?
I was in Austin, Texas for the weekend. Just a little quick getaway before Easter, and got to see my college best friend's family live there, and then my friends from Indy who moved to Austin were down there having their baby shower. So just got to be there to celebrate. And yeah.
Did you go to Gordo's Donuts?
No, I did not.
It's a bomb
that
donut
the place?
shop in Austin.
I've never been to Austin.
Austin's a great
Austin's a
town.
very cool place to be.
It doesn't feel like you're in Texas.
Yeah.
It's very artsy, great music environment, a lot of good food. But then the weather down there, you can do stuff. So when Chris and I were there, we went kayaking and
Yeah, it rained the whole time we were there for the most part, but it still was. I love Austin. I would 10 out of 10 recommend going. But well, welcome back to the party. I don't think I said that, but welcome back to the party. Welcome back to the podcast. Welcome back to this is like the small group Bible study. You usually say this is a large group Bible study, but there's only.
This is the discussion after the Bible study, where a couple people go away and be like, oh man,
Yeah, it's
you
the
remember
people
what those guys said? I didn't agree
It's
with
like the
that.
people that stay till like 11 o'clock and finally you're like, you need to go home. We have work tomorrow. Yeah. That's what this feels like. But a lot has happened. I know we're starting to talk already, and I know we're ready to jump in. But we have to just talk about the fun parts about the season you were telling us a little bit earlier. Like, there's just so much good going on that's what's keeping you up at night. And I would agree. Nothing but net's my favorite. Purdue won last night, which I know you're super stoked about.
Go.
So, any thoughts
Big
on the
win.
game? I mean, it's nothing but net, so we have to.
Well, yeah, you kind of teed up a few things there. Prior to us hitting record, I had said I didn't sleep well last night, but I'm in this season where some of it's related to just excitement. Sometimes you don't sleep because you're stressed. Other times you don't sleep because you're just excited. And this season comes with one thing after another. And it all kind of starts to blur together. But you look at the worship album's coming out. You see what's happening now with Northview Athletics, and you see the different missions teams. Aren't you going on a mission trip coming up soon?
Yeah, shout out. I'm going to Ecuador here in September.
That's
so
awesome.
if anybody's been waiting to take their next step and go on a go trip, I'd love for you to come to Ecuador in September.
Yeah.
Holler
Is that
at
a Filter
me.
of Hope trip?
It is a Filter
That's
of Hope.
cool.
And I've never gone on Filter of Hope. I've done a domestic trip, and I've done Uganda. We did a women's trip to Uganda, which was unbelievable. But this will be my first Filter of Hope, which I'm
cool.
super, super excited about.
Shout out to the missions teams. They just
Crush it.
they do a lot behind the scenes in
Yeah.
terms of developing and maintaining local partnerships, global partnerships, and most people don't realize it, but the church in many ways, especially through our missions department, functions like a mutual fund.
Yeah.
And the work that they put into really vetting just great organizations, spending time with their leaders, understanding their objectives and how do they, kind of even gauge their own progress and effectiveness, and how can we best come alongside them. And it is really a great function that we have, to where when people give to Northview, you can give with confidence knowing that those resources are being stewarded and shared with really remarkable organizations around the world. And that's the first check we write every month is, our tithe check to others. So that's amazing.
Yeah, and I would get in trouble with the video team if I didn't point out there's 2 documentaries that we've done, one about Filter of Hope, one about Bright Hope,
great.
our partner in Uganda, that we've been partners with them, I think maybe 8 years or 9 years or something like that, and all the work that's gone on in Uganda. It's like super cool to see, check out the Filter of Hope documentary. That's one of my favorite things that we've done.
Yeah.
Like, you look at that and the story that's told of the work that's going on in three countries. I think it was Ecuador, Guatemala, and Cuba. It's cool to see.
Yeah.
And really what's great is a lot of organizations do humanitarian type stuff. And Filter of Hope is kind of a humanitarian sort of thing, but the gospel work, the gospel work that's like going on, like they're going into people's houses and they're, giving them this, life-giving water filter that's cleaning up their water. But then they're sitting down and then they're talking about the water of life. They're talking about Jesus, and people are committing their lives to Jesus from that. And it's just really cool to see. And and you just see like chains being broken in families in these countries. And then you also see, what was great about the Filter of Hope documentary is you also see our people's hearts change. And we were having a conversation last week just about how ministry, it's for the people that you're serving. It's also for you. It's for you to change your heart and for you to grow. And a lot of times we just like look at a need and we're like, well, they don't need me to do this. And like, well, God doesn't need you to do anything. He owns the cattle on 1,000 hills. He doesn't need you to do anything, but you need it. And get involved.
To do it.
Well, what's interesting is I've always thought that affluence is probably a greater challenge for the church in the West than adversity. And when you go on trips like Filter of Hope and you go into an impoverished area where they are not so afforded the comforts of things that can disguise shortcomings in life, the simplicity and the clarity that can come through the messaging of the water and the Filter of Hope and how that process plays out, and how that's also symbolic of our spiritual journey with Christ. It's, the success rate in terms of like the number of people who give their lives to Christ through the Filter of Hope initiatives. And I think it's because where there is lack and because where there's poverty, sometimes they're not able to divide up their dependency. And they're just open and ready to receive. And I went on a mission trip to Africa once, Tanzania actually, and how they plant churches out there is there's a lot of hostility between the Muslims and the Christians. And the area was more predominantly Muslim populated. Well, one thing that they found was the Bible college that we were working with, when they would send out church planters, how they would do it is they wouldn't build a building or they wouldn't buy a property. They would dig a well. And that pastor would preach at the well. And eventually what would happen is the oppositions, if you will, in that situation, it was the Muslim community, they would not attack the church because it was adding value to the community. And so they found that the water and the well was almost like a safeguard for these church planters to go into these villages. And it's like, hey, you stay by the well. And then what that well does, they do everything from like, they make clay to forming their own bricks to raising their own crops. And it's amazing. But sometimes you get out of our context and you realize the simplicity and how our affluence can overcomplicate pretty obvious things of like, we all have this need. And so Filter of Hope, but this year, I think this is going to be the third year straight where we've had record-breaking mission trips. We've got another Bible expedition coming up. I know our student ministries team is still riding the high of ice camp.
And two student teams are going to Ecuador. One goes out this Saturday, and I think one either is gone or they're leaving again too. So they're just, and then they have they go down and build an SOS is what it's called. The organization. They're sending teams out roofs for spring break. Kids are spending their spring break serving.
And is special needs prom coming up?
On the April 16th.
It's just there's so much good, and we haven't even talked about Easter. Like, Easter's around the corner. I'm thrilled about all the outreaches that will take place through Easter.
All the egg hunts.
So all things church related are just like unbelievable right now. It's just a fun season. And then, yes, on the personal side, Team Johnson is thrilled that these Boilermakers got it done yesterday.
gosh.
So we are thrilled. At the 11 o'clock, I felt bad. You know, it was kind of like squirrel.
So funny.
There's a guy, everyone stood to pray, and there's a guy in the balcony who I just make eye contact with. He was wearing, at first I thought he was wearing like a Marshall shirt. You know, Marshall, the college has the big M as well. Because it was like a white top, and I couldn't tell if it was like blue or green M on his shirt. And so, I don't know. Sometimes it's what you get with me as your pastor. I'm like, hey, is that a Michigan shirt? And
which is so funny because you're wrapping up the service.
As
You've
we're
just
getting ready to pray.
preached this great message. You're like telling people and move on and everything. You're like, okay, let's pray. Michigan?
It's so bad. And the guys, he's standing next to his daughter, who's probably somewhere between 10 or 12, and I start messing with him, and I'm like, oh man, I hope this is not coming off poorly. But he was totally a trooper about it.
I mean, if Michigan had won, he probably would be okay. But now, who knows?
Well, you know, I think you look at that Michigan roster. I mean, there's a very good chance they're going to win it all. Like, that's a great team. Even if you looked at throughout the game, they just looked like giants compared to Purdue. And we've got a couple big guys, but they're all, you know, 5-star McDonald's All-Americans. They're just a really great team. For Purdue to get the job done, because I think if you go back, it was at Mackey that Michigan put a whooping on us. And so for them to come back as the 7 seed in the Big Ten tournament.
Yeah.
So here's a team that started out the season ranked number 1 in the country. Starts out fairly strong, and then they just go through a low, which happens to a lot of
4 straight
people.
losses to end this season?
Yeah. And part of me thinks those moments can be a huge blessing in disguise. It's like the wake-up call before, you know, it's go time. So, but they played well. Obviously, everyone knows I'm pulling for Braden. Had 11 assists. And I was wanting him.
Does he need 3 more for the record?
Well, so 1 to tie it, 2 to break it.
Okay, yeah.
And what I loved is, so his jersey got ripped. And Braden wears number 3, so they had to give him a different jersey. So he comes out wearing number 41. He's the only player on the court that doesn't have his name on the back of his jersey because he's got like a blank. And I kept thinking to myself, this guy is going to break the all-time assist record in a nameless jersey in the Big Ten championship. And it felt like poetic justice. Like, that would be like, I personally think, and this is coming from someone who is, ask anyone I ever played with, a true ball hog. Like, but I think the all-time assist record is more impressive than the all-time scoring record, because it requires true basketball IQ, team, play, selfless, just decision after decision to set someone else up for success. Yeah. When, if you watch, he can score.
Okay.
Like he can definitely score. He's quick. He can shoot. He's got all the moves. But he just understands it's a team game. Yeah. And so to see him about to break the record, and now how NIL jersey sales work, I think now 41 belongs to him. And so I jumped on, I posted something jokingly about just wanting a number 41 jersey. Yeah. And people started sending me the link that it's already like being made available. I'm like, I got to get that jersey.
Crazy.
But I just thought that was cool. Like,
that is very
that
cool.
Had he broke it in the Big Ten championship, that jersey would be like in the Hall of Fame.
Right.
Yeah.
Such a unique thing, so shout out to them. I thought Trey Kaufman-Renn really played well against all those big giants, and they were in some foul trouble, but the guy was, I'm going to pull this out of thin air, but I would guess probably 60 to 70% from the field. It just was making it happen. I think Fletcher Lawyer has played really well. I would even say throughout the season, he's had really strong moments. So, fan of him. People always say that he's my doppelganger.
Oh my gosh. I saw a picture of him last night, and again, like just from the win, and I every time I'm like, that literally looks just like CJ. Like if you,
I receive it as a compliment. I don't know if it's as
a compliment to him.
A compliment to him. So I don't try to run with it too much because I'm like, this poor guy would probably like to be associated with someone other than this guy. So
no, you guys look the same.
Big win though, huge win. Did you guys watch it?
I did not. I watched the highlights this morning.
Yeah.
It was impressive though. It's cool to see. You're talking about the big guy in the center. Yeah, man, he was just banging with those guys, and I mean, they definitely did have the size advantage, and he just went toe to toe.
Yeah,
and it was like cool to see him kind of maybe just surpass what was expected of him in that moment.
Yeah. Well, there comes one play where Braden drives, and the big guy for Michigan, he's 7'4". I don't know.
Yeah.
He's a giant. Braden Smith is listed at 6 foot. I don't want to. I don't want to throw shade his way, but it might be a generous 6 foot.
Yeah, and he's like skinny too. Like,
yeah,
he's like little. He's not like a muscular.
No,
like
to be fair, he's not little. He just looks little compared to everybody he's with.
But he goes.
5'2". I'm little.
Well, he goes to the lane on this massive guy, pump fakes, ends up scoring, getting the foul, makes this like crazy shot over the guy, which was totally like a David versus Goliath type feel, like this guy versus this guy. And then as he makes it, he's like flexing, and
yes,
our whole family was going nuts. Like we're in the living room screaming. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, we are pumped. And then they got the 2 seed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
to beat Michigan, number 1, to win the Big Ten championship.
Yeah.
We're in the West region, and I like our draw.
That's massive.
So pretty fired up. Go Purdue, and yeah, I think it'll be a good tournament. I think Arizona looks really good.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're tough. I do think Michigan will still make a run. If I'm a Michigan fan, I'm thinking to myself, that's one of the best things that could have happened to us.
Yeah.
Because now it just like stung.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And now you
Fire
have
'em
this
up.
team that has all the potential in the world, who just had this wake up call of like, oh, we can lay an egg or be beat. So,
which is the great thing about the NCAA tournament.
Oh, yeah.
Is like, because you could argue that you don't always get the best team that wins the NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
But the one that has the best, most favorable bracket, they don't hit some team that's just hot in one night. In baseball and everything, you're like a 7-game series. I mean, you're probably going to get the best team out of like, that many games. But in the NCAA tournament, it's just like you're one and done.
Yeah.
And it makes it like really exciting because the Cinderella story is possible. And so
every single year there's a team that you've never heard of.
Yeah.
And just so happens our first round game is against a college I've never heard of.
Yeah.
Which makes me nervous, because that's what you root for. You want to see the teams where it's like, who are these guys?
Right. And they're not getting covered on like ESPN or whatever, so you actually don't know like how good they are, because they could actually be really good and just not have ever come up to the top.
Yeah. Well, there's a interview after the game with Clough, one of the post players for Purdue, and they had asked him what he knew about, I think it's Queen's University or Queen University. That's who we're playing. And it's not from Queens, New York. It's from, I think, Charlotte, North Carolina, which is known as like, I think the Queen City or something like that. I don't know, clearly. And they asked him, and like, hey, what do you know about this team? And it was very apparent. Like, he was like, I have no idea who we're playing.
Right, yeah.
And that's sometimes more terrifying.
Yeah.
So, but I would guess Painter, who I think is one of the best coaches in college basketball, will have the guys ready.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Well, super excited for.
I can tell you guys are really excited. I'm going to buy you both some Purdue apparel.
I love going to a game. You know that. I mean, I'm passionate. I'm a passionate observer. If someone we said it, I'm like, if you yell it next to me, I'm going to believe what you said to be true, and I'm going to yell it in solidarity with you. Specifically, this gets me in trouble with Kristen because Kristen will yell something, and then I will yell something.
Yeah.
It was funny after Cannon had a game this weekend, and he comes up and he was like, Mom, I hear everything you're saying. Like, just give it a minute. Like, I hear everything you're saying. She's like, that's the point. Like, that's what we're here for. And then I am yelling. I have no clue if that was a travel. I have no clue. But I'm gonna yell about it. So,
man,
you want me on your team. That's really what I'm saying. So,
as parents, we shouldn't be coaching from the sideline as much as we as parents all do. But
well, you truly became a coach on the sideline of all the kids. So.
Bypass that whole spectator thing and just like, no, I'm going to go right to the bench. So
I have so much. I love it. I have no desire to be a head coach. I actually don't even like coaching the games. I like the practice setting better. But my niche is sitting on a bench and talking some kid off a cliff every time he comes these kids come off the court so frustrated with themselves, and I'm always like making them like repeat after me, like 2 words, just say it. Who cares?
Yeah,
like, bro, who cares? This is the game, you know. And sometimes I'm preaching to myself when I say that too, because I get a little too fiery.
Well, truly, that's kind of what the message was this weekend too, which makes so much sense that you're like, I enjoy being this coach, because truly that kind of is what you are for us.
Yeah.
This whole message was about it's time to move on. We go into what a heat check is, which was, I learned a new term. Super thrilled
really?
about
You didn't
that.
know that? Oh man.
Let's be for real. Like,
Sorry. The depths of your ignorance about basketball did not understand, but
no, it's because I'm part of Team Johnson. I think everyone just assumes that I'm about to go ball out.
Yeah.
And besides we talked about it a couple weeks ago, besides my vertical, that's all I have going for me.
There you
so my little vertical still. But truly that was what this week was about.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about James and his brother John, sons of thunder. We're in Luke chapter 9, and we witness what would be sports term. Here we go. Everybody buckle in. An air ball. Like, truly, they tried something.
Yeah.
And it just flopped. There was no even momentum to try to get it back. Jesus rebuked him.
Yeah.
And they moved forward. There was no conversation. There was no rebound. There was a rebound in some ways, but I'm really excited to get into this conversation. We started talking about it a little bit before, but for all of those that are tuning in, we are in Luke chapter 9. Yeah. We are talking about James, kind of his brother John too, because they tend to be in one, especially in these random conversations or these ideas that they have. Yeah. And I love that they always ask Jesus, unashamed. There was not a lot. I'm like, I want to hear the conversation pre them asking. Like those two, the brothers scheming, hey, we're going to go ask Jesus. This is such a good idea. And Jesus is like, no. Like, I rebuke you. Absolutely not. And that doesn't happen just once. It happens a few times with them.
Well, that's what I love, thinking about with the Bible, is because these things just don't pop up out of nowhere. This is their character. So this is the one that got recorded. So maybe this was the worst time, but they're always just they're throwing things in every now and then. Their mom had come and asked, for favor from Jesus for them. That's probably not the first time she did that. Well, they were hanging out and they're like, hey, what could you do for my sons?
Well, even after Jesus tells them what's going to happen, they're like, hey, so when that does happen, can we make sure we have the right and left in eternity? You just told us you're going to sacrifice yourself for all of humanity. So after you do that, can you make sure that I'm on the right and the left?
I just want a chair that's a little bit higher than everybody else. It's just right next to you. That's all I'm asking for.
Logic.
You wonder, Jesus, how did they pass the interview? You just offered them the position, but again, very raw.
Yeah.
Very ambitious, passionate, outspoken, and Jesus welcomes it.
Yeah.
He's not concerned about his ability or inability to redeem and repurpose someone's passion and ambition. And you you can almost draw the conclusion that he prefers to work with people who have some gusto and have some of that passion and enthusiasm where he can redirect and refine it, as opposed to the person who is just dormant, apathetic, non-interested, who needs so much prompting. And it's not to say that he dismisses those folks, but it is to say he clearly creates opportunity and even elevates some very clumsy disciples. And these are, next week we're going to look at John. Still landing on which passage I'm going to preach on. I don't know if John will have as embarrassing of a moment as James and Peter did. However, John was a part of this week, so he kind of got some of the shade thrown his way. But the 3 team captains, and they're just coming up short at times.
Yeah. Well, you often talk about like why we can rely on the Bible. And what's so interesting about the Bible is the heroes of our faith have so many flaws, so many character flaws. And oftentimes when you're writing about a hero, you don't want to write about like the worst things that they do.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, like you look at like Iliad and the Odyssey and everything, you have like these, massive heroes and everything. You're not always writing about their mistakes and all the embarrassing things that they do. And the Bible is just like riddled with like, we talk Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, like, hey, here's all the bad things about the people that we are putting at the top of our, hall of faith, and you have the same thing with Peter, James, and John. It's just like, well, Peter denied him. James and John were like swelling up with pride and trying to like take these positions, and in a way, like, they want to murder some people. Right. Like, do you want us to call down fire and like murder these people because of how they insulted you?
Yeah. Jesus wouldn't have rebuked them if he didn't think they were serious.
Right. Yeah.
It's not like he like joked
they
off.
weren't joking.
He was like, no, they actually want to do this.
Yeah.
And Scripture is funny. I always tell people, like, if you're trying, because people will make some like surfacey accusation against Christianity, like it's some hoax or urban legend or some scam set out to dupe humanity. And I'm like, this isn't how you would do it.
Yeah.
No.
You wouldn't record so many errors and mistakes, and every cast member is riddled with humanity. Yeah. And what is interesting is that seems to be one of the overarching takeaways of Scripture is there comes a more pointed moment where Jesus, he's at a dinner party, surrounded by sinners and tax collectors, it tells us. And the religious elite, the Pharisees, the pastors, right? The Sunday school teachers, the small group leaders, all the ones who are like, those are the godly people, are standing at a distance, and they're scoffing and they're frustrated and they're assuming poorly of Christ. Jesus comes out. He makes a statement that, as I read the text, it almost seems to me like it goes over the Pharisees' head. And he says, I've come for the sick, not the healthy. Yeah. And in that moment, Jesus is clearly saying, hey, these people need me. Yeah. These sinners and tax collectors and whatnot. He goes on to talk about, I didn't come for the self-righteous, and you wonder if like the Pharisees are picking up what he's saying. Like, hey, I'm not coming for this religious facade and your ability to like go through the motions and to fool other people. Like, I can see right through it. And that's, I think sometimes the things we forget when it comes to Christ, like he can see through it all. Yeah. And he truly desires to have a relationship with the real you. Yeah. That's terrifying. Like, who in your life are you able to share fully the real you with? Yeah. And, maybe you're at a point where you get, whether it be a sibling relationship or a relationship with a parent or a spouse, where you get to a point of just trust and transparency, and that's a beautiful thing. Yeah. But I would guess that most people still would find that there are things that they hold close to the vest in terms of like, but if people knew the thoughts that I have sometimes or the feelings that I'm processing, and Jesus knows all of it, yet he still welcomes all of us. And that is one of the biggest encouragements to me in Scripture, is just seeing how consistent and willing God is to use imperfect people.
Yeah.
Somehow we still keep thinking the goal is perfection, and it's just not what he's after.
Yeah.
Well, we're looking for measurable things. We're looking for like, how do I know that I'm doing this right?
Yeah.
Right.
And Jesus kind of like removes the measurements. You know, like the only thing that you can measure by is your relationship to me. Like, you want to be close to me, and we're just like, well, but what else can I do? Yeah. Like, what are the other things that I can do? Can I show you? Like, you were talking about like just zeal this weekend. I think that was like one of the big themes, is like, you have these guys that are super zealous, and a lot of times we're like, well, is that how I prove that I'm, truly a follower?
Yeah.
It's like, well, I'm just super zealous about this. I'm like so passionate. And in this, like, well, is zeal a bad thing? No, it's not a bad thing. Mm-hmm. But it's not like proving anything to God.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think sometimes people think in terms of zeal or passion that it's like a personality.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like that it's an outgoing, extrovert type person.
Yeah.
I don't view it that way. I think you can be soft-spoken and introverted and still be passionate.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think passionate people are consistent. I think they're focused. I think they're present. Mm-hmm. They show up, and they're active. They're action-oriented, and they're not passively sitting back waiting to see what will happen. They're engaged and they're participating. Mm-hmm. And so I think passion, zeal, it can look a lot of ways. Paul's zeal looks different from Peter's, but they were both very passionate. I mean, they both look different than David. So it's not a personality type that God is after. He's not saying, hey, I want really gregarious, loud, outspoken, magnetic extroverts. No, that's not what he's saying. Yeah. He's saying, but I do want people who carry within them a readiness and a posture and an eagerness to participate and to experience. And I think God he knows who's got open hands and who doesn't, and people who stand ready to receive it. And, these guys are like, clearly have some bad assumptions. Like, maybe we're here to jockey for position. If he's one, who's two, who's three, But at the end of the day, I think God recognized in them, like, but they want to be a part. They don't know how they're going to be a part.
Right.
But the one thing is for sure, they clearly want to be a part.
Yeah.
And
they wanted to be close to Jesus. Like you talked about how within what the marker is the closeness and the relationship is what Jesus marks as. Well, no one was closer to Jesus, especially physically, than these two and Peter. Like that is it. Yeah. And even then, like that's where there has to be this ability to mess up, which I know we'll talk a little bit about and why you need to be able to move on. Yeah. But even in the closeness and close relationship that you have with Jesus, you will mess up. I appreciate zeal in all ways. I would say that I'm a very passionate person in general. Yeah. But I appreciate zeal because people were zealous in the Bible. I have examples that these are what is chosen. When you talk about the coaching the best players, it's mostly in zealous interactions. I mean, even when, he does miracles, it's the person who is zealous enough to get to him. Mm-hmm. Like that is the example that he chose. And so, and it didn't have to, you don't always have to say anything to have the zealous approach, which I don't know. I really appreciated this message because I think sometimes people have been, I mean, people are waiting for permission. I think we'll talk about that as well when we talk about time to move on. But I'm like, I think some people are waiting for the permission to be passionate or be more open-handed, or like they've been waiting for this prompting.
Yeah.
And truly it's like, okay, well, here it is. Here's the permission. And you're going to mess up with the permission. You always talk about failing forward. Like you have to be able to fail. Like bet the farm.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, like what are the options anyway? You may lose it regardless, but you might as well bet the farm in the process. And, you know, even in a heat check, like you might be on fire, but you might not be. But you wouldn't know if you didn't try it. And so, I don't know. I'm very passionate about this topic because it's so important. And I think it's so important to mention you don't have to be the loudest person in the room to be zealous, and especially for the Lord. He uses all people in all ways, but you have to be available to be used. And that in its approach in itself is you have to be zealous enough to.
Yeah, I think people are so concerned about being viewed as like a fanatic. And I always think to myself, but you don't apply that same standard to other areas of your life. You don't mind people knowing you're a fanatic about your political views or fanatic about your sports teams, or like we are fanatical about hobbies, and you just go on down the list.
Yeah.
But then when it comes to our faith, that's the area we decide, hey, let's dial it back here. And again, I pray I'm not being interpreted to be endorsing some obnoxious, expression of the faith, but it is just to say, if it's true, if it's real, that what Jesus did actually happened and what he accomplished provides this for you and I, and through our relationship with him, we truly have the indwelling of the Holy Spirit that is changing us from the inside out. If all these things are true, the natural byproduct should be joy.
Right.
Should be gratitude, should be eagerness, should be anticipation, it should be hope. You should sense the believer leaning in.
Yeah.
Even though there's still challenges and uncertainty, it's like, yeah, but he's still God. And I can't unsee or unexperience what I've already had.
Right.
So I think it's great. But, and it's funny, these knuckleheads, we call it heat check, air ball. I mean, it could also be categorized as a technical foul. Like they are just letting their anger get the best of them. And you look at all of chapter 9, and you're like, in the middle of all that, these guys are still miscalculated at times. I rattle off a few of the things, but you could do probably an entire 8-week series on just Luke chapter 9.
Yeah.
Just look at the sections that you have in it. You have Jesus sends out the 12. Jesus feeds the 5,000. You have Peter's confession of Christ, which is a big moment. Like Jesus says, who do people say that I am? Who do you say that I am? Maybe that's the one I should have preached on, Peter. Then there's the transfiguration. Then he heals the boy. Then there's the conversation about who will be the greatest, and then comes, the Samaritan opposition, and but Jesus follows it up with talking about like the cost of following him, and I think that's probably one of the areas that I wish I had another hour. In the message to say, okay, move on, like move on, whether it's shame or offense. Excuse me. It's time to move on.
Yeah.
But then Jesus, verse 57, as they were walking along the road, a man said to him, I will follow you wherever you go. And Jesus replied, foxes have holes and birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man has no place to lay his head. And he said to another man, follow me. But the man replied, Lord, first let me go and bury my father. And Jesus said to him, let the dead bury their own dead. But you go and proclaim the kingdom of God. Still another said, I will follow you, Lord, but first let me go back and say goodbye to my family. And Jesus replied, no one who puts his hand to the plow and looks back is fit for service in the kingdom of God. And he's calling them. You know, you got to think, like, the disciples are hearing all this in earshot.
Yeah.
And he's clarifying for them, it's going to be great. It's going to be worth it. It's going to be fulfilling. It's going to be challenging. It's going to come with disappointment. Yeah. You're going to experience pain. There is a cost to this.
Well, what's really interesting there is, he just, rebukes James and John and then goes into this conversation. But Peter, James, and John are the ones that did what these guys were unwilling to do.
Yeah.
Like, they left their livelihood, they left their nets, they left their, father's business and everything, this thing that they, that would have supported them through this time to do what these people are like, oh, well, I've got to go do this instead first. I've got to do this first. So it's almost, in a way, affirming them right after the rebuke.
Yeah, it's a great thought.
Like, what you just did, not acceptable. Like, that's not good. Don't do that again. Yeah. But you stood out. When I asked you to follow me, you followed. Yeah. And most people aren't willing to do that.
Yeah, I think that's a great thought. Most times we just do not stay in proximity, stay connected to even be able to receive or hear those affirmations. Last week we looked at Peter, who, after his rebuke, gets invited up the mountain within days. Steve, to your point, that is a indirect affirmation to those guys. And so that's awesome. I would say the other thing I probably would have spent time on, legend versus legacy, is some of the narratives and historical accomplishments that are often attributed to James. And it's hard to piece it together. There's a pretty large camp that believes that James went to Spain. And he goes to a context that is completely unreached. There's no frame of reference for God and the gospel. And the legend is, by the time James is martyred, he was only able to convert 7 individuals. And it was through those 7 disciples that a revival began in Spain. And I don't know. Is it a legend? Is it truly his legacy? To play it safe, let's just say it's legend. All right? Let's just say, through church history, and obviously the Jewish community has really done us a solid in their ability to document and carry stuff forward historically. Let's just say it's legend. At the time of this man's death, the assumption was he's the type of guy to go out into a completely unreached context and give his life to raising up 7 people. That's the type of guy James was. Right. Whether it's legend or legacy, the assumption was that's who James the Great was. And, I wouldn't be surprised if he did raise up 7 disciples and they went on to carry forward the ministry in honor of his passing. Obviously, you see that's what happens in Christ, and so I wouldn't be surprised if something like that did ever take place. But it is a really unique thing to think about. Jesus has the Great Commission moment. He sends them all out, into the other parts of the world. And it's fascinating to look and think, hey, where did they go? And that's why, again, you got to go on a Bible expedition. Because when we were going through Turkey, and you're like, they came here?
Right,
and it's wild to see. And so those would be the things I probably would have liked to spend more time on, but there's never enough time.
There's never enough time. That's why this exists. That's why Welcome to the Party exists. What should we call Monday morning quarterback? That's pretty much what we just did, but in a basketball term. I feel like we have to pick, you're not a quarterback.
Like the film room or something like that. You're going in, you're watching the film, and you're like,
what's the equivalent of a Monday morning quarterback?
Man,
I don't know.
I don't know if the game of basketball comes with as sharp play-by-play critique as football does, because basketball's spontaneous. Now, you're going to get me talking about why I think it's the best sport ever. But it is spontaneous and it's free-flowing.
Yeah.
Where in the game of football, you have a huddle, like almost like a timeout after every play.
Yeah. Let's talk about this.
Hey,
here's what we're going to do now.
Yeah.
You know, and so it is, everything is so determined, so strategized, so precisely determined. And so I think for the game of football, it comes with like, why did they go for it on fourth down?
Right. Really analytical about it.
Yeah. Where basketball, I don't know if it comes with as much regretful criticism, because it's like, things happen in the game. You know, I'm sure there's some of it, but
yeah. And football, I mean, you've got like how many football games? 16 or something like that.
Yeah.
And then in a basketball season,
82.
Right. Yeah. And an NBA basketball team. So as soon as you're done, you're like, oh, that's done. And actually, this kind of works with the move on idea too, because hey, we've got another game tomorrow night.
Yeah.
right.
You know, like we can't just dwell on all the minutia of everything that happened last night. We actually have to get prepared and ready for the next one. Yeah. And you have to have a lot shorter memory in basketball. And I think you talk about with shooters, and we talk about with like scorers and stuff like that. They have the memory of a goldfish. Yeah. Like, oh, I missed that one? No problem. I'm going to shoot it again.
Yeah.
You know, and they move on a lot quicker than some players. Like you, one of the things I've always been fascinated by is you see guys with all the physical gifts coming out of college, and they are, you know, like this guy could be the next Jordan or whatever it is, but their mindset prevents them because and oftentimes it's because they get in their own heads and they beat themselves up and they're just like, and then they overthink the next play and they make mistakes and the coach pulls them out because they're like, I can't have you out there.
Yeah, it's a real thing. You know, I obviously love basketball. I talk about it a lot. I think most people know I played in college. It always sounds more impressive than it actually was. I don't think I was this like elite ball player. What's funny to me is I had teammates. I can remember an individual, I won't say his name, in college, better than me in every area.
Yeah.
He was more athletic, stronger. He could shoot, dribble, all these things. But he was an absolute head case.
Yeah.
And he basically spent his entire time on the bench. I started over him all 3 years there at that university. And it was just always amazing to me that like you can have all the ingredients, but if you can't put it together and manage the space between your ears, all of it's meaningless.
Yeah.
And so much of it is rooted in mental toughness and some of that stuff. But it is amazing to me that you can look and think, now that's the guy,
right?
And be completely wrong about it.
Well, and with your guy Braden, like not all the physical gifts. He's not LeBron. He's not 6'9" and built like a tank. But he has that mental toughness. You talked about T.J. McConnell last week.
Right.
Just these examples of guys who are out there and they're giving it their all. And if you put them on the court, you're going to get everything from them. You're going to get the zeal, and you're going to get like, I messed up, but I'm gonna make it right on the next one. Yeah. You talked this weekend about your boys' basketball team and just the fact that points off of turnovers.
Right.
You made a mistake and then you compounded that mistake because you didn't hustle back. And how many times in our lives are we just like, I made a mistake, and then you're like, I mean, people do it with their like diets all the time. They're like, oh man, I like ate this one thing, and like, then I might as well just go ahead and just have the whole cake. I had a slice. Let me just eat the whole thing. And being able to like stop in that moment and be like, I don't have to make the next bad decision.
Yeah.
I don't have to follow the path that I started right here. I can say something and make a mistake and then move on and get to a better place. And people that move on are the people that move forward. Yeah. And a lot of times if you just analyze what you've done and you get stuck and you start just rotting in that place.
Yeah. I was watching one interview with the coach. I forget who it was. It may have been Hurley from UConn, the men's coach. And he was making fun of parents. And he was like, you guys think that when we show up to scout your kid, you think we're paying attention to how many points they had or the highlights.
Yeah.
He said, half the time, like, you would be like completely disappointed and surprised to know what we're paying attention to. Mm. He said one of the number one things he does when he shows up to watch a kid, he's waiting for the kid to miss his first shot. Mm. And what he wants to do is he says, I want to see how do they shoot the next shot after a miss. Mm. Yeah. And he says, and if their shot looks different the second time after the miss, that tells me they've spent the entire time between the last shot and this next shot overthinking and changing their mechanics. Yeah. And rather than just stepping up and just shoot it.
Yeah.
Just maybe last time you got bumped, maybe you were rushed, maybe your feet were like, just shoot the ball.
Yeah.
And it's funny when you hear like some of like the people who really do this well and for a living, and when they unveil like, hey, this is really what makes the difference. And I was telling our 8th grade team the other day, I think the best 3-point shooter in Indiana for boys basketball, like I think shot in like the low 40%. Mm. It's pretty good 3-point percentage. And I'm like, boys, you're missing 6 out of 10.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like if you're going to be an elite high school shooter, you need to prepare to be able to handle 6 out of 10 misses.
Yeah.
And it's funny because you'll see a kid miss one shot and just lose confidence immediately. Mm-hmm. And it's not specific just to sports. Yeah. We do this in life. Yeah. We do it in our relationships. We do it in our career. We certainly do it in our faith. We assume that with every single decision we make comes the potential of us throwing the earth off its axis. Yeah. And it just comes with an unnecessary pressure that God's not putting on us. That's where even, I got to be careful here, I do not believe in soulmates. And I know people will be like, wait a second, Pastor, I believe God. Yes. I believe God in His sovereignty.
I'm with you, just so you know.
I just
sorry to Kim, because you are my soulmate and you're the only one that could ever have been made for me.
Yeah. No. I think, yes, it's an endearing thought to think God chose this person for me. But we all know so many people who married the wrong person. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can look at how many just divorces and broken families there are. So clearly, people have been marrying the wrong people for a long time. Cupid has been dealing with the mess for a while.
He's shooting 40%.
Yeah, I
with
just
his arrows.
I just don't think that's the goal, you know. And I think that comes with like this like superstitious pressure. No, marriage, biblical marriage that is rooted in covenant is the daily choice. Yeah. To choose to love somebody, like, and reflect God's love for that person to the best of your ability, to love them into their potential. It's a choice, you know, and I think people are assuming like, no, there's this one person out there who God created so perfectly for me that the moment I meet him, it is going to be so compatible that it'll never come with conflict. Right. They'll never let me down. I'll never let them down. It's like, no. Yeah. That's and then people are like so disappointed.
Yeah, when the fairy tale breaks.
Yeah.
Like,
and I just think we're placing all of this really insane pressure on so many areas of our life, and we do that all the time in our faith, where we think one error, my salvation is void. One error, God dismisses me. And it's like, where? Like, where are you getting any of that in Scripture? Like, you don't find it anywhere. In fact, it's the opposite, and it's exhaustive. How he's just so consistent. So, I don't know. I think I came into the weekend just thinking to myself, Lord, would you in some way use this message to just get a few people out of their head and on their way?
Yeah.
Just move on.
Yeah.
Just get out of your head and get on your way. And
why do you think it's so hard for people to move on? Like, because you were saying you talked to several people this week that, like people who are solid Christians, people who are following Christ and everything, but they still have these areas where they haven't moved on. They have somebody who's living rent free in their head. They have a situation that they were a part of that that either hurt them or that they made a mistake and that they can't move on for. Why do you think it's so hard for people to move on?
So this week I focus specifically on shame and offense.
Yeah.
And in terms of shame, I think shame is the devil's most lethal weapon. I just think his ability to trip us up. I'm going to probably have to come back on that statement. Do I believe it's his most lethal weapon? But I think it is. Obviously sin, but how he leverages shame in our life. There's that point in the Old Testament where every year the priest would bring together 2 goats.
Yeah.
Right. And the one is sacrificed for the sins of the community. The other represents the shame. Well, what did they do with that one? Like, it's kind of frustrating. The one that represents the sin is killed, dead, gone. The one that represents shame, all the sins of the entire community would be confessed and placed upon that goat. Then one trusted individual was given the task to take that goat randomly, don't tell anyone where you went, just out into the middle of nowhere, far away, and to just let it go. And I always think to myself, well, that's such an interesting thing. Like, sin has been dealt with, but shame is out there wandering around. And that is what happens in the life of the believer. This side of the grave, sin has been dealt with, but shame is still out there wandering around. And that kind of trips us up. It's always in the back of our head where we're assuming it's going to get us or circle back on us. And I remember there's this book I read. It's called The Cure, and it has to do with shame, and it's written in a kind of a parable-esque type of form. Anyone dealing with shame, I'd say that's probably my best suggestion to you is you should read that book. Talks about an individual. He comes to a fork in the road, and I don't want to ruin the book for too many people, but comes to a fork in the road, and one sign pointing to the left says to please God. And then the other sign pointing to the right says to trust God. And so the guy sits there and he's like, well, of course I want to please God.
Right.
So he heads down this path to pleasing God, and ultimately, when all's said and done, he realizes like how that leads to like an empty veneer where he ends up at this palace of like all these like well-dressed and well-kept, and everything's beautiful, and everyone's playing the part, and everyone's doing everything they can to please God. But secretly, they're all struggling. And then he eventually makes his way back down the road, and he heads the other direction, and he ends up in a very like unimpressive palace compared to the first one, where people are a little bit more calloused and honest and raw and genuine, and he's forced to like trust. Like, I trust that your grace is sufficient, and I trust that you are going to walk alongside me as I overcome this pile that I created of sin and shame in my life.
Right.
And I think the goal there is to trust God is really what the book would say. It's like, sometimes we're placing all the pressure on our performance. And maybe if I please God, maybe he'll forgive me. It's just not the gospel.
There's nothing there, yeah.
And so I think shame is the residue of sin, the inability to forget what you did.
Yeah.
And shame is tough. And I just think it is something that cannot be handled casually. It needs to be identified and addressed. And I do think you need to leverage the authority you have in Christ and Scripture to rebuke the lies of the enemy that are simply trying to foster an attitude or an assumption that does not align. No, God's not done with you.
Yeah. God
hasn't discarded you. He, like I said yesterday, he doesn't cut these guys from the team.
Right.
So I think with shame, it's the only way through it is to arrive at a place where you recognize your only option is to trust that God will see you through it and his grace is sufficient.
Yeah.
On the offense side, oh man, that one's a little trickier because it sometimes roots itself in our desire for justice.
Yeah.
And right and wrong. And that is where it trips me up is there have been times for me that I have just had a very hard time with individuals not being held accountable for their poor actions. And people who can create havoc and wreak harm on individuals and really do damage and get away with it.
Yeah.
That for me is
Yeah.
But you just have to learn to lay it down. And, I think to move on, especially from offense, it's similar to forgiveness. Forgiveness is not forgetting. That whole hey, forgive and forget.
Right.
When has that ever worked?
Yeah.
I've forgiven a lot of people. I don't suddenly have amnesia.
No memory.
I don't even know what they did to me. No, I will remember it probably for the rest of my life. So forgiveness is not forgetting. Forgiveness is not even healing. It's not saying hey, I'm healed from this situation.
Right.
No, you can forgive someone while you're still healing, which also means forgiveness is not the absence of pain. So for the person who's I don't know if I've forgiven them yet because I'm still hurting. No, you can still hurt long after you've forgiven somebody. And that makes it challenging. I think forgiveness is simply, at its basic form, a cancellation of debt.
Yeah.
It's simply saying, I'm not looking for you to pay me back.
Yeah.
And I'm not looking to repay you for what you've done. And when it comes to offense, it's just really hard to walk away from what would be a relational breakdown.
Right.
And not feel like there aren't loose ends and things weren't made fully right. And there are times that we just have to accept that we're not the ultimate judge and we don't get to control everything.
Yeah, I think that there's this reality that people have, especially when it comes to offense, people have this obsession with this idea of closure. Yeah. And I would say even when someone's walking through a victim cycle or a shame cycle, they want something to close that moment or that chapter. And I was sitting here thinking, but what would be that thing that would be enough? Okay, you made a mistake. What would be that thing that's not going to allow you to continue to sit in that? If forgiveness in Jesus is not enough, there is no other substitute. Yeah. Nothing is going to, you're not a time traveler. We're not going to go back in time. And even closure with the offensive people, okay, an apology might feel good. It might allow space for healing. Reconciliation is a beautiful thing. But nothing will cancel out what that happened to, except for the only space that things are canceled out is on the cross. And so I'm just if people are waiting for the thing, even in this moment, if a listener is waiting for the thing has already happened. And I'm I think for the it's time to move on, I think there's a camp of people that needed the permission to hear that. People needed the permission to be like, okay, it's time. And then I think there's a camp that people need the pressure of like, no, you have to.
Yeah.
At some point, you have to wake up. You have to decide it is time for me to move forward and move on and not be afraid to move again, you know?
Yeah.
And because I think it's funny, it's time to move on from what may have happened and move forward. But then I think there's the people who are afraid to be zealous and they're afraid to move at all. And it's like, no, your whole life, this whole journey, sanctification, is going to be a move and a move on, and a move and a move on. And like, that is the gift. Like, that is what these guys went through. It was like, hey, they were in movement. They were doing a move. They were going to Jerusalem. They messed up.
Yeah.
And then they had to move on. And then they moved again. And then they do something foolish again. And it's just, that is just the reality of it. But people, myself, we just let ourselves sit in this condemnation, victim, shame cycle. And I don't know, I think in some ways, I think the devil gets us to a place that it's almost pleasure, that we can wallow in our self-pity in what we did. And we're going to put ourselves through all this pain to justify our action. Like, I deserve this. And to be honest, we do. But the glory and the gift of God is that he null and voids it. We do deserve what we sometimes sit in.
Yeah.
But we don't have to sit in that anymore. You say it all the time, like, God doesn't hold on to his grace, so we don't get a hold onto our shame. And like, that's truly what it is. And so I'm super encouraged by this week's message. I'm ready to, people aren't ready. I walk away from weekends sometimes, and maybe it's the little Pentecostal in me. I'm like, I'm ready to storm wherever we gotta go. Like, the gates of hell have nothing on us. And my prayer is that even if it's in your own subtle zeal and your own quiet space, like, that there is something in you that's like, no, I'm not going to let the enemy have a hold on what God is going to do. I mean, he was going to do the ultimate thing. And if they even took an extra moment or an extra second to sit in this and like have a debate with Jesus about whether or not they should do it,
right?
What could have been missed out on? And I think we are missing out on ultimate gifts. And not because God won't do it, but because we're just delaying. Yeah, I think the answer. So I don't know. There's myself.
No, I mean the forgiveness one is massive. Yeah. You know, there's one, I'd say shame, offense. Either one of the worst things you can do is isolate. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know, and be alone in the echoes of your mind. You need to place yourself around people, and that, again, that's where the biblical community thing comes into place. I have found one of the best things for me is just going out into the lobby on the weekend. There have been times where I would get chewed up in an email, and man, it would sting, and it would make me like hesitant to want to engage or interact. And you can almost start to assume like, well, everyone thinks and feels that way. And then you go out into the lobby and you realize that, okay, like the actual real people around me are like wonderful. Whoever this anonymous email came through is different. And so I do think isolation is a multiplier of both shame and offense. When it comes to forgiveness, you know, there's that point, again, Peter is in the conversation, like they're asking like, but how many times should we forgive somebody? And Peter thinks, oh, I'm going to nail this one. He's like 7 times, right? And Jesus is like, no, 70 times 7. Right. You know, and I'm not a mathematician, but what is that, like 490 times? A lot. You know, and I can recall years ago, I went through this situation, super hurt by it, and like I was talking to a mentor, and I thought like, I mean, I'm like 6 months past, 8 months past, and it's still a very present thing in my life. Like, and I remember having this conversation where I thought like, man, when does the sting ever wear off? Like, when does it no longer consume your mind? And how do you know when you've actually forgiven? And we had this whole conversation. I remember him saying, he says, sometimes you need to wake up every single day and just in faith forgive that person. Mm-hmm. And he said, and eventually over time, there comes a day where you realized, I think I actually forgave them. Mm-hmm. And I remember when he told me that, I thought, I don't know if that's a good answer. Like, I don't know if you helped me there. But literally, I remember every single day that being a part of my prayer life of like, Lord, like, would you just take this heaviness, take this offense, take whatever it is, and help me forgive this individual. And then there came a day where it just wasn't there, mm-hmm. And what's funny, you talk about 490 times of forgiveness with Peter's question. It probably took a year and a half. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It probably took a year and a half before like I could truly, sincerely say, yeah. Yeah. Like if that individual walked through that door right now, I'd give him a bear hug. Yeah. But I also think, Aubrey, you mentioned the cross, and that's why communion's so important. That's why staring at the cross is so key. On the cross, Jesus says, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And I think one of the best things we can learn to do is forgive people's ignorance. Mm-hmm. Right. Is sometimes people caught up in whatever they're thinking and feeling, managing whatever's on their plate, similar to mm-hmm. individuals even in Scripture, they too come up short. They're miscalculated. They have no idea at times what they're doing, and I mean, these guys are ready to burn them to the ground thinking they're doing the right thing. Yeah. And Jesus is like, you guys are clearly missing the point. So right. I do think trying to model that, mm-hmm. And sometimes it's an aspirational goal of mm-hmm. Lord, that's, mm-hmm. I feel like not a goal to achieve, but a target to aim for. I'm just trying to aim to model that. But shame and offense will get you in. And Steve, to your point, I thought coming into this weekend, I even said it at the 9 o'clock, I think, where I said, guys, this is probably just this message comes with just a simple reflection. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's time to move on, and I thought, I don't know if this is going to be one for the masses. I just sometimes when you're in this role, you just have to faithfully teach and know that God uses it how he does. Mm-hmm. I was shocked. Like true heroes in our church, mm-hmm. People who I'm yes, you can lead in any capacity around here. I trust your character. You're wonderful. We're coming up and be like, man, mm-hmm. I needed that one. I've been carrying around shame. I've been carrying around offense, mm-hmm. and it landed way more across the board with our people than I was expecting. So mm-hmm. praise God for that. Yeah.
I think it was just a great weekend across the board, and I can't wait to hear about all the life group discussions that are going to mm-hmm. take place this week. I think there's just going to be a lot of freedom. This week is going to be a week that's marked by freedom for a lot of people in our church for the message of just, you're it's just so simple, but it is one of the hardest things for us humans to do is to just move on and hold that. So I'm excited for next week. We're continuing the series. You already kind of gave a little spoiler on who it's going to be, but I won't repeat it. So you have to come back to church next week to hear about it. Yeah, and I'm excited to continue the conversation. I think that we just get to be a part of a team that we are not up to par on the roster, but we will. You guys love all my sports stuff this week. I'm really trying.
That was good. You threw a little golf in there.
I know, not up to par, but truly, God's team is marked by people who we're going to get it wrong a lot. Yeah. But man, Pastor CJ mentioned it, we just have a deep bench though. They're truly together. We can do it. And I'm excited that that's what's going to continue. And I'm excited one last week of the series. And truly I was my favorite part of Nothing But Net is all of the big CJ, your dad. You reference him so much in this series and I love it. And so I'm just excited to keep leaning into that in the conversation. So
That's amazing.
That is so fun.
All right.
Is that our time?
That's our time. We'll see y'all next week.
See you guys.
Appreciate you joining us.